Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the methane session at the 2024 International Conference on Carbon Neutrality. This session will focus on reducing methane emissions across agriculture, energy, and waste sectors through multi-level governance and collaboration. We'll start with an opening by Mr. Ken Alex from UC Berkeley, followed by presentations from Ki-Yong Kim, Vice Governor of Chungcheongnam-do Province, and Shivani Shukla from UC Berkeley on methane reduction policies. Then a panel discussion led by Helen Clarkson, CEO of Climate Group, will explore effective strategies for methane management. And after a short break, Session 2 will feature a presentation on the methane mitigation in China by Tongsin Zhu from IGDP and a panel on technological advances moderated by Sang-Ah Lee from SFOC methane team. And finally, Mr. Ken Alex will provide closing remarks. Thank you for your attention. And without further ado, let's welcome our first speaker, Ken Alex, who will set the stage for the methane reduction.
Okay, good afternoon. It's always the most fun to be at the last afternoon session. So thank you all for being here. And of course, what could be better in the afternoon than talking about methane? So what I want to do before we get into the discussions from the folks who are coming up next, who were just described, is give it a little bit of background on methane and also on the Subnational Methane Action Coalition that I mentioned this morning. So let's see. Do I just push for the slides? The green, yeah. I think they have to pull them up. There we go. Yeah, got it. I'm sure these are really worth waiting for. Yeah, got it. All right. Okay, so we're going to, while they're looking for the slides, I think what we'll do is I will welcome Director Woon Seong-yo to the stage, Director of Climate and Environmental Policy here in Chungcheongnam-do Province, and have him come and make his presentation about the methane roadmap.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Yeo Un-sung, and I'm the head of the Climate and Environmental Policy Division of Chungcheongnam-do. Thank you for your presence. And I know that there are many participants in and out of Korea. Thank you very much. Today, I'd like to talk about Chungcheongnam-do's methane reduction roadmap towards carbon neutrality by 2030. Before I start, I'd like to cite the Secretary General of the UN, who said that methane reduction is a must to avoid the worst scenario of the climate crisis. Is the most effective way to avoid the catastrophe. I think that his saying demonstrates the urgency and importance of methane reduction. So let's look at the slide. This is the current status and conditions for carbon neutrality promoted by Chungcheongnam-do. Annually, as of 2021, 158 million tons of carbon dioxide equivalent is recorded in this region, and Chungcheongnam-do ranks at the first with the 23.3% of the total emissions of South Korea. In addition, there are a lot of industrial complexes and petrochemicals are still in this region. For your reference, a total of 677 million tons of carbon dioxide equivalent is recorded for the entire country, and Korea ranks at the sixth among OECD countries when it comes to the emissions. In order to go carbon neutral, we established the 2045 Carbon Neutral Green Growth Basic Plan. By 2045, we would like to reduce 100% of the emissions compared to the 2018 level, 5 years ahead of the national plan.
이를 위해서
To make this happen, we share the acknowledgement of carbon neutrality is an unstoppable trend of our time. And to proactively respond to the climate crisis, we declare the Chungcheongnam-do as a carbon neutral economy special zone. And we promoted energy transition from coal. We would like to promote hydrogen, and we would like to create the ecosystem for hydrogen. For the first time ever, we successfully established hydrogen power plants, and we also tried to make an offshore wind power complexes on the west coast. In addition, we are trying to transition from carbon-intensive industries to low-carbon industries. And we also enacted, and we are trying to enact the special law on carbon neutrality. And our plan is to make it passed by the National Assembly. In our everyday lives, I think that we have to try our best to go carbon neutral. Although the government is deregulating, we are also trying to deregulating unnecessary ones. So we entirely banned the environmentally harmful materials, and we are trying to expand our policies across the region. And we successfully reduced 53% of the waste. And we are also trying to enhance our R&D efforts by attracting institutions all across the nation. Reuse of EV batteries is one of our priorities, and we are also trying to build a hydrogen research center. Methane and the climate crisis. Methane, as you're well aware, Compared to the CO2, it remains very short amount of time in the atmosphere, but it contributes to the climate crisis about 82 times more contributions it makes compared to carbon dioxide. Because this is something we have to focus on in order to avoid the catastrophic disasters caused by climate change, we are trying to successfully and effectively control methane. And that is also in line with our objective to stick to the 1.5 Celsius limit. Next, about 40% of the methane comes from natural sources, while 60% of them come from human activities. Among the 60%, the agricultural sector is the largest source of emissions. Therefore, we would like to reduce methane emissions by 45% by 2030. By doing so, we believe that we can control 0.3 Celsius degree warning by 2040, and we believe that this is on track to achieve our 1.5 Celsius degree limit. And we also believe that it reduces the formation of ground-level ozone pollution, which is a primary component of smog. Next, this is our 2030 Chungcheongnam-do methane reduction roadmap. To begin with, our region about 3 million tons of methane is emitted by this region as of 2021. And agriculture and livestock take account of 84.3% of them, while waste 11.8%, energy industry 3.7%. If you consider the characteristics of the emissions of our region, you can conclude that our plan should be in line with the reduction of methane. And in that context, our aim is to reduce methane emissions by 35% compared to 2021 by 2030. And I think that this is a more ambitious plan compared to that of the national government. This is our implementation directions. First of all, in order to effectively reduce methane, we selected 25 projects and manage those projects at the subnational level. Among them, we identified 17 projects in agriculture and livestock, 5 projects in waste, and 3 projects in energy industry. We continue to manage and promote those projects. Second, methane energy coming from agriculture and livestock is promoted into the energy by our local government. We are trying to process the waste and feces and utilize that as energy. In this regard, we are building 3 plants to transform those feces into energy, and we are also trying to spread EVs and other renewable energy-based vehicles as well. Third, we are trying to secure national budget very actively. And fourth, we work on the expansion of methane reduction projects and identification of institutional improvement tasks. So we are making suggestions to the central government instead of just receiving the proposals from the government. Next, this is our concrete plans. By 2030, we plan to reduce methane emissions by 1.2 million tons by 2032 compared to 2021. If you look at the specific numbers, we are going to reduce about 1 million tons in agriculture and livestock areas, and 196,000 tons in waste and 43,000 tons in energy in industry. In this regard, we are trying to promote low-carbon farming technologies while improving livestock environmental conditions, expanding low-carbon feed distributions, and improving energy conversion method. And we are building organic waste processing plants to allow energy conversion. In methane energy utilization plan, by 2030, we are going to install biogas production facilities to generate 151,000 triple meters a day, and we plan to treat 3,000 plus tons of livestock manure, among other sources. Last but not least, this is our budget investment plan. Again, we want to reduce methane emissions, and we try to utilize methane as new energy source. So we plan to make an investment of 1.4682 trillion Korean won by 2030. And this is our detailed numbers for our budget. So this wraps up my presentation. And I'd like to highlight that going forward, our region will try our best to identify new projects and reduce methane emissions. And we will strive to continue our journey. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Un Sung-yeol, for presenting Chungcheongnam-do Province's comprehensive methane reduction plan. These initiatives clearly reflect the leading efforts of local governments, not only in carbon reduction, but also in methane mitigation. And now I'd like to welcome Mr. Ken Alex once again to the stage. We apologize for keeping you waiting, but I'm sure it was well worth waiting. So please join me in welcoming him with a big round of applause.
Well, thank you for that. Director Yo's presentation was so good that he covered a number of things that I was going to cover. So I'm going to shorten what I'm going to do so we can get on with the presentations. But okay, so you saw this earlier, and Director Yo just talked about the fact that methane is much stronger than CO2 and that it lasts in the atmosphere a lot longer, so we can skip. Minister Yo talked about the distribution of methane emissions in Chunam. This is the global emissions distribution. It's a little bit different. You can see that agriculture is still the most, but it's about 42% rather than 84% as it is here in Chunam. And that within agriculture, enteric fermentation, meaning basically burping cows primarily, is the largest source. Rice cultivation, which is significant here in Chunam, is 7% of agriculture, and then manure management, as you see, is 3%, and there are other sources. Oil and gas, 24%, and various forms of waste make up most of the rest of it, along with coal mining. So that's the worldwide distribution, a little bit different than Chunam, but some similarities. I mentioned this morning that we're going to get a lot of satellite data. There are 2 satellites that have been launched in the last 3 months that are on the very, just about to start providing significant amounts of data. One of those satellites, called Carbon Mapper, will provide data around point sources down to about 7 square meters. So we're going to get a lot of data about a lot of sources, very specific sources of methane, including here in Chungnam, and that data should start arriving in about 3 months. Very quickly, I just want to talk a little bit about the Subnational Methane Action Coalition. You see here a list of the initial members. We've actually, since this time, added Beijing as an observer and a few other jurisdictions. And of course, today we added Chungnam. So we expect the SMAC to expand over the next few years, or the next few months even, and already it has representation all over the world. So just briefly, I want to talk about what we're trying to do with the SMAC membership to have significant support for figuring out what the sources of methane emission are and what the overall inventory. Chungnam already has a very good handle, as you just saw, on its sources of emission, which is fantastic. So we can move on to the next set of goals, looking at collaborations across subnational governments around the world, as well as one-on-one support from my center at UC Berkeley, creating a network of policy and technical experts, and you'll see some of what we're up to in some of the next presentations in just a minute. We also want to see if we can get financing for some of the efforts to reduce emissions and partner with the open access methane data platforms from satellites and other sources. In addition, we want to really raise the profile of methane. As you've heard from Minister Yeo as well as others, methane is the most important short-term effort we can make to reduce climate impacts, and want to make sure that there's a lot more focus on that possibility. It's free to join, and we hope to keep it that way. Let's see. So here are the specific actions that SMAC members are agreeing to pursue. In no particular order, but to have a methane coordinator, to develop an inventory, have a reduction plan, create and implement that plan, and a leak alert system to include remote sensing such as satellites, to convene with others to help promote action, and to be part of the education effort. So very consistent with Chungnam's plan, and we're very happy to have them with us. So with that, I think I won't belabor it. We'll move on with the presentations. And so I'm very pleased to introduce the next presenter, who actually is my colleague at UC Berkeley, Shivani Shukla. Where's Shivani? Come on. And you're going to talk a little bit about some of the actions that SMAC members are taking.
Thanks so much, Ken, for the kind introduction. And as Ken mentioned, I'm Shivani Shukla, a climate policy researcher at UC Berkeley Center for Law, Energy and the Environment, and helping with the Subnational Methane Action Coalition. It's a pleasure to speak to you today. Thank you. To amplify some examples of subnational methane reduction policies, focusing on members of the coalition, especially in North America and East Asia. And congratulations to Chungnam on joining the coalition and demonstrating methane leadership in the Asia-Pacific region. As has been affirmed today, there is a strong imperative for subnational methane action. Subnationals often have the required authority over key methane sectors, especially waste, though this does vary by country and area. States also are better connected to local populace and economy, and this allows for better bottom-up action and more granularity in targets. As we saw from Chungnam's leadership, they are more ambitious than national Korean targets, which also shows subnationals can be more ambitious in generating momentum in climate action. Thirdly, we heard from the CHAM panelists earlier this afternoon that creating NDCs, methane targets, and inventories at the subnational level supplements the national pledges and action, especially for members of the Global Methane Pledge and also outside it. I'll now focus on some examples of methane action from the US and East Asia, especially highlighting work by members of our coalition. The International Energy Agency's Methane Policy Tracker has identified 71 regulations across North America. These are cross-sectoral, often mixed with other climate actions and also standalone methane policies. Our sister organization, the California-China Climate Institute, has identified 125 actions and policies across the US. This is a project undertaking that's still under development, but the results would be out very soon. Some examples from this data set include ways to divert organics from landfills, food waste reduction, climate-smart agricultural programs, carbon credit structures that allow methane reductions in it. In focus is one of our key member states, Colorado, who are leaders in oil and gas regulations. Some examples of the regulations that the state has instated include their Orphan Well program, which identifies and addresses orphaned oil and gas wells across the state. The Oil and Gas Conservation Commission regulates the intersection of climate, public health, and conservation actions through this numbered regulation. The Senate Bill 21264, Clean Heat Targets, address downstream methane and natural gas supply standards. We've heard some examples of leadership by California already. The state has 40% reduction target for methane by 2030. Some of the regulations, and the list here is definitely not exhaustive, includes coal mine methane, both from active and abandoned coal infrastructure, regulations around organic waste, livestock methane, and manure management. This comes with a strong partnership with the academia infrastructure in California, including ourselves at UC Berkeley and also UC Davis. And California has a number of agricultural technologies under development. One of the key kind of regions that we're seeing that are developing methane reduction plans and targets are based in East Asia. East Asian subnationals are showing leadership on waste methane, methane tech around rice improvements, and increasingly agricultural and energy methane as well, though we do understand that they're somewhat more difficult to address in this part of the world. The California-China Climate Institute has identified key efforts in China, and Chungcheongnam-do from IGDP will elaborate on some of the subnational action in China later in the methane session. Korean provinces are showing progress in methane reduction, as we have seen through the methane action plan by Chungnam just before this presentation. And we're sure that this leadership will continue into implementation as well. And then Gyeonggi-do was one of the founding members of SMAC. They joined us in December 2023, and we are seeing increasing action by the state on methane, especially in the use of satellite data and also their work on waste. These are some trends in methane reduction and management that we're seeing from one-on-one conversations with member states in the Subnational Methane Action Coalition. As Ken mentioned, there's been a massive increase in methane data from satellites. Some of the recent satellite additions to the constellations have been satellites by the Carbon Mapper Coalition, MethaneSat by the Environmental Defense Fund, and others soon to be launch. There's been a movement towards advancement and standardization of measurement, reporting, and verification of methane technologies, and then also improvements in leak detection and repair technology. And one of the key themes of this conference has been subnational methane action and international cooperation, and we're seeing this through various coalition formations, such as our Subnational Methane Action Coalition, or SMAC, and then low methane's efforts, namely SCALE. So with that, thanks so much for listening in. And this is, again, the list with a few additional dots on the map and hopefully increasingly more. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Shivani. Lots going on at the methane level. Our next presenter is Helen Clarkson, who you've all met before, so I won't even introduce you, Helen.
Thank you, Ken. So the next session will focus on measure to manage better, and we're actually going to start with a video from Climate Trace. Climate Trace is a non-profit coalition of organizations building a timely, open and accessible inventory of exactly where greenhouse gas emissions are coming from. Climate Group and the Under 2 Coalition have worked very closely with Climate Trace in the past on the States and Regions Remote Sensing Project, which used satellite data to provide states and regions with a recent time series of greenhouse gas emissions data. So with that, we're going to hear from Lekha Sridhar, who's a research and special projects lead for Climate Trace.
Hi everyone, my name is Lekha and I'm representing Climate Trace, an initiative that measures greenhouse gas emissions down to individual sources and make that data freely accessible to everyone. We are a not-for-profit global initiative with organizations that are not-for-profits, startups, and universities. We each have emissions expertise in one sector, and we've combined that expertise to have a single platform that has emissions from all the major emitting sources. We use a combination of satellite data, AI, and other tech innovations to have that data available with very little lag time. A little bit about our approach. Although we have a different model for every single sector, at a very high level, what we do is we find emitting sources, such as steel plants, power plants, livestock farms, and other sources. We might manually gather their data, we might use existing data, or use satellite imagery to find these sources. We estimate the activity of the production happening at that source. We use a combination of satellite-based models or statistical models to measure the production. And then finally, we develop the emissions estimation model that includes several other inputs like weather data, country-specific information, plant characteristics, fuel mix, etc., to actually measure the emissions. In addition to the emissions at the source level, we also provide uncertainty and confidence data to enable users to better understand the data, and also the facility level ownership, scope 2 emissions, etc. One example of how we measure emissions is rice cultivation, which is of course a major source of methane. Rice, just because of how rice cultivation happens, there can be one or sometimes even up to 3 harvests in a year in some regions just due to the culture. Climate Trace uses satellite data to actually find the areas under harvest, how long they're under harvest, and how many times in a year they are under harvest. We can then measure methane emissions by applying emission factors. Our rice cultivation methane emissions data is available at a 10-meter resolution for all the major rice growing regions globally. And I think I have South Asia here as an example of the kind of data that we have available. So what's in our source level database? As I mentioned before, we provide emissions estimates at the facility level for all the major emitting sectors, which include some of the major methane emitting sectors like fossil fuel operations, agriculture, and waste. We provide emissions estimates for all the three major greenhouse gases. And we have data available up to 2022 right now on our website, but we will have 2023 and 2024 data available very soon in less than a month. So how can state governments use climate change data to understand methane emissions and potentially take mitigation actions? Well, first and most importantly, for states that don't already have it, you can create an up-to-date greenhouse gas inventory using climate trace because we have provide emissions from all the major emitting sectors. I have an example here for CO2 emissions from Chungcheongnam province in 2022. This is in CO2 equivalents, but it can also easily be available for any of the three gases separately also. For states that already have an inventory, climate change data can be a very useful source of comparison and validation. This can help build confidence in the state's own inventory and also potentially find gaps if any exist. And these sort of comparisons can be made either at the sectoral level, at the overall inventory level, or even down to the individual facilities. Third, this can also be a useful source of information to compare with other states or overall country in terms of the emissions trend. For example, if in your state emissions in a particular sector have been growing, is that true for all the other states in the country? Is that available for the? Is that true for the country overall? Does that hold true for other regions which might be economically and demographically similar to your state? That kind of information can be very useful in understanding what these trends mean. Fourth, because we have such granular, spatially granular data, climate change data can also be used to identify emissions hotspots. This is particularly useful for agriculture and forestry, where because of how high resolution our data is, states can use this data to see if there are certain areas where certain type of activities like rice cultivation are extremely intensively happening, and also direct mitigation initiatives and incentives to those areas to help reduce emissions or to bring in more climate-friendly practices. And then finally, it's also really important to understand the complete breadth of emissions happening in order to set standards. If you don't know how high the emissions are or how low the emissions are in terms of intensity within a sector, it's really difficult to know what would be the right place to set a standard. So that's other information that could potentially be used from climate change database. So how can you access climate change data? Well, you can access it from our website and also from our API. All that information is available on the slide. It's also very easy to match climate change data with your own data by using the IPCC categories. And finally, we would be extremely happy to help you compare with your own inventories, to understand the methodologies, review any analysis, and understand our data structure. So please do reach out if you have any questions. Thank you.
That's great. So thank you remotely to Lekha, and hopefully people can find that data. We're now going to have a panel discussion. I'm going to be joined on stage by Her Excellency Carolina Armenta Cervantes, and then hopefully joined online by Manjur Alawalia, the Regional Lead for Asia for the Global Methane Hub. So hopefully I've got... Do we have chairs? No. Do we have chairs? I think we can sit and then go. Someone's joining online. Oh, so you're one of the people too, right? Someone should be joining online. Oh, okay. It's fine. It's fine. We need 2 chairs. 2 chairs. Sorry, we need to make. Okay, thank you. That's great. Sorry, let's start again. So, for this panelist, we're going to be joined online by Manjot Alawalia, who's the regional lead for Asia for the Global Methane Hub. She's a climate policy professional with extensive experience in international climate policy, multi-stakeholder coalition building, and corporate sector engagement. And in her current role, Manjot's responsible for driving and delivering the Hub's methane mitigation strategy and projects across high-impact sectors and geographies in Asia that bring direct socio-economic benefits to countries and communities. So I'm hoping we see her in a second behind us. And then Her Excellency Carolina Armenta Cervantes, who is the Secretary of Urban Planning for Infrastructure, Mobility, Environment and Natural Resources for Baja California Sur. And we heard from Carolina earlier, and now we'll go into a bit more detail. Thank you.
Thank you.
So is Manjot, have we managed to get her online? Because
I don't know if you see me on video.
Oh, I can hear you. Yes, we can see you. Yes, great. Welcome.
Okay, wonderful.
And hopefully you heard our
Thank you.
introduction.
Thank you, Helen.
Hopefully you heard your introduction
Yes, thank
to
you.
you. Good. So my first question is to you. I'm going to ask you two questions. So let's start with, what role do philanthropies and non-profit organizations play in supporting decarbonisation efforts, especially in measuring and reducing methane emissions?
Thank you so much, Helen, and really great to be with you all virtually. I'm really sorry could not join you in person. So my apologies.
Hey, you froze at Manjot. Can you still hear us?
Climate finance gap that we are seeing, right, which needs to be mobilized, the trillions that, yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Great. Yes, we can. You're back. You're back. So, yes, maybe start your comments again.
Sure. That was just, I think you missed the gratitude piece. So I just wanted to say I'm grateful to be virtually joining you all. And sorry I could not be there in person. But it's also great to share the virtual space with you, Helen, and Her Excellency. So I'll just, I did hear your question. So I'm going to just answer that by saying that there's right now a significant gap, as we know, in climate finance. We do know the trillions need to be moved to solve the climate crisis. And there's a climate policy initiative report that actually tracks the methane finance that has been going to certain regions and certain sectors and states. And it was found that out of the entirety of the climate finance, only under 2% of the tracked climate finance is dedicated to methane mitigation. And just to put that in perspective for you all, we need approximately 50 billion USD a year for methane mitigation. And right now, the amount we have needs to be 3.5 times higher where it stands on an annual basis. We also know that additionally, the tracked finance is not going into the key subsectors of methane, which is across waste, energy, agriculture, especially in the fossil fuel sector, which has the highest methane mitigation potential. And largely we're seeing that go to the offer-low and the waste sector, which is of course very important, but we also have to match climate finance with the mitigation potential. Another important thing to note is that we are not seeing this methane finance go in key geographies where direct benefits can be delivered to the communities and improve quality of lives for people, especially in low and middle income countries. And just as an example, Latin America and South Asia are responsible for 26% of global methane emissions, 13% each, and they've received only 1.8 and a 1.3% of global methane finance, respectively. So I just want to first put things in context on where we stand on climate finance, and even though we are making strides, it is inadequate when you look at the proportion of the climate crisis. And that's why many initiatives, including our philanthropic fund, began at the Global Methane Hub. For those who don't know us, we are a philanthropic effort. It's a pooled philanthropic effort where we align funding on methane mitigation, energy, agriculture, and waste sectors. And also our work is, as we noted earlier, looking at direct benefits to the communities where we are working in terms of better public health, livelihoods, productivity, nutrition. And we also work across various regions such as Asia, Latin America, Africa, North America, and Europe. However, the focus is the low and middle income countries because these countries will be at really the cusp of increased methane emissions with rising GDP and population by 2050. And this cannot be solved without putting a development lens to the issue. And so what we are doing is we are catalyzing funding with the help of many of our partners in the room today on the ground in the Global South to support methane across various issues, including monitoring, reporting, verification that that Climate Trace mentioned a little bit about, transparency of the data with improvement in inventory, but also remote sensing. We are working with groups like Carbon Mapper and EDS Methane Sat to bring that data more to the communities and make it more transparent for action. We also work on influencing public policy and engaging with policy makers at the and we also facilities to ensure that the parliament, and last but not the least, realize we are a catalytic fund, so we have to work with others. So how do we leverage our finance with additional climate finance from various sources, including the multilateral development banks and municipal level, subnational level funding available? So I'll pause here, Helen, and give the floor back to you.
Thank you. And we got most of what you said, which was great. I'm going to push my luck a bit and just ask you, how do you think the partnerships between those different groups can be strengthened?
Absolutely. So we need to do this on a collaborative basis for sure. And the more partners we have on the ground, I think the stronger we are. So with that, I think what I had ended my comments with last was, how do you leverage the additional climate finance, right? So I think that's one area where I think philanthropy can really play a leading role, where we are able to come in with the first initial risk capital, so to speak. And then that once we have a proven pilot, or if we create the project preparation facilities to show sustainable business models, that can be taken up by the multilateral development banks, by the other levels of funding and types of funding available. Some of the examples would be, we are working on a project with Inter-American Development Bank on waste management in Latin America. In India, we are working with the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs on a project preparation facility for waste management again. And I think the other thing would be to really bringing data to action, really picking up on the theme of this panel. We have various initiatives such as Scale and LOM, and many of which the Climate Group and other partners are part of. And how do we really take the data and make it more data to action to empowerment, where local communities and local operators can actually use this data and policymakers can really use it to enhance ambition. And some of the work we are doing here is, we have a waste map, which really looks at the methane hotspots on waste for various cities. We also have some work in China with our partners on better data to inform the National Climate Action Plan that China released last year. And we also have some ongoing work with partners in South Korea and, of course, India on really getting that data to action. The other thing I think which is really great, given we have a room full of subnational leaders, including the Chungnam's leadership as well in methane, I think the work with subnationals is going to be key. So along with CLE and the Climate Group and others, we are supporting the Subnational Methane Action Coalition. And we really think subnationals will be the building blocks for the work we need to do to influence the national and international. And I think, last but not the least, philanthropies have a unique role, and especially regranters like us, or a true hub like ours, where we would like to continue creating a convening space, be an ecosystem builder, connect our partners, implementing partners together. We had our recent convening in April, actually, in Seoul this year, and we really found that the region, the Asia region, as varied as it is, really has the leadership potential for cooperation on key issues for methane. And one of them being, how does this region really influence the upstream methane emissions through its LNG value chain? And we know that there are leaders in the room. We have Japan, we have South Korea, we have China that do import methane or LNG. And I think together they can really create some cooperation, some of it already happening through ASEAN and other fora, on really influencing the value chain and really influencing emissions and impacting the exporter countries as well, right? So I think there's potential for that as well. So I'll pause here.
Great.
And I hope this covered some ground.
Yeah, thank you very much. With that, I'm going to turn to Her Excellency Carolina Armenta Cervantes. Question, about your work in Baja California, sir. Can you highlight any successful initiative or policy that your jurisdiction has implemented to reduce methane emissions, and tell us how others could learn from your experience?
Gracias. Yo les comentaré, les platicaré del modelo de aprovechamiento de residuos orgánicos y de nuestro lombricario estatal y estación de transferencia de residuos. La problemática que tenemos en el estado, según el diagnóstico estatal de residuos en Baja California Sur del 2024, el municipio de La Paz, solamente el municipio de La Paz genera 193.597 toneladas de residuos sólidos al año. De este total, 102.606 toneladas corresponden a residuos orgánicos, que al llevarse al relleno sanitario y con descomponerse contribuyen a la generación de gases de efecto invernadero que afectan a la calidad del aire y la salud pública, representando actualmente aproximadamente 5.130 toneladas de metano y 143.648 toneladas de dióxido de carbono equivalentes al CO2. Bueno, la solución. La transferencia de los residuos orgánicos en materia orgánica pueden ser utilizadas para la elaboración del lombricario, de lo que es el humux y lixiviado, evitando que sean destinados al relleno sanitario y disminuyendo la emisión de gases de efecto invernadero. Un valor importante es que los productos naturales resultados puedan ser comercializados en la agricultura y a la par se disminuye el uso de fertilizantes sintéticos, que esto continúa, que haya químicos contaminantes contribuyendo a los residuos de las emisiones. Por esta razón, consideramos que la construcción del primer lombricario estatal permite procesar un alto volumen de desechos orgánicos al año, hasta un 11% del volumen de los residuos que llegan del relleno sanitario. La producción de humus y lixiviado contribuirán de manera significativa en la conservación del suelo al mejorar una estructura preveniendo la erosión, ya que este producto requiere que el suelo se nutra esencialmente y los microorganismos beneficien, fortalezcan su capacidad para sustentar a la vegetación y resistir a los efectos de la Además, al promover prácticas agrícolas sostenibles, estas iniciativas ayudan a prevenir los recursos naturales y mantener la productividad de la tierra a largo plazo. Nuestro proyecto piloto. El proyecto piloto inició en colaboración de la Universidad Autónoma de Baja California Sur, la Organización Civiles Alianza para la Seguridad y Alimentaria y Ponguingyola. Actualmente se procesa aproximadamente entre 500 y 700 kilogramos semanales de residuos orgánicos. Tenemos un proyecto estatal escalonado. Al ampliar el proyecto por medio de tecnología de lombricomposta, se tendrá una capacidad de procesamiento de hasta 95 toneladas de residuos orgánicos al año, con un potencial de mitigación de 4.8 toneladas de emisiones de metano y 134.4 toneladas de dióxido de carbono equitativamente. Adicionalmente, se podrá obtener actualmente 57.6 toneladas de humus, 86.400 toneladas de lixiviado y 22.8 toneladas de lombrices para su comercialización. Esto generando así una economía circular con múltiples beneficios ambientales. El fortalecimiento local. Gracias al interés y el apoyo ciudadano, este proyecto se recibió hace poco una donación de un predio de 4,000 metros cuadrados que nos va a permitir formalizar la primera estación de transferencia de residuos orgánicos en el estado. Se logrará además explorar otras técnicas de compostaje para el aprovechamiento de estos residuos, como biodigestores, sistemas Windows, degradación a partir de la bacteria termofílica, sistemas hidro, Jungelculture, entre otras tecnologías. Fortalecimiento internacional. El proyecto estatal tiene un costo aproximadamente de 2 millones de pesos. Se cuenta con un apoyo financiero de $25,000 proporcionados por convocatorias Future Fund de Cayman Group, que será destinados a la fase inicial de esta construcción. Adicionalmente, la propuesta fue seleccionada con uno de los 11 ganadores de la iniciativa Tooth God de Water del BID, donde se participaron 20 países de América Latina y el Caribe, con más de 230 propuestas, de las cuales resultaron 18 ganadoras, y en México nuestra propuesta fue el proyecto que ganó, ¿no? Este proyecto será utilizado para el estudio tecnológico factible para el aprovechamiento de residuos orgánicos, así como el análisis de posibles modelos de negocio basado en compostaje, en el que se sumarán hoteles y comercios de los 3 municipios más importantes del estado, que son Los Cabos, La Paz y Loreto. Al final, para generar una línea basada en la medición de pérdidas y desperdicios de alimentos. El sector son grandes generadores. Esta propuesta para la reducción de metano es un ejemplo de compromiso que existe de parte del gobierno de Baja California Sur y la importancia de la suma de esfuerzos de toda la comunidad que tiene la voluntad de promover la cooperación técnica, la transferencia tecnológica como contribución de cuidado del medio ambiente en estos 3 años de administración. Muchas gracias.
Gracias. Thank you so much. Thank you, Manjot and Secretary Armenta Cervantes. Love to hear about worm composting and the circular economy, and I compost with worms at home, but not as successfully, I think, as this. Thank you very much to the panelists, and with that, I'll hand back to Ken.
So we're going to take a 10-minute break and be back here at 4:50. So we'll have it's worth coming back, so please do. Okay, thanks everybody for coming back. We have two more excellent segments. The first is Local Solutions for Global Challenge Methane Mitigation at China's Subnational Level. And our speaker is Tongshen Xu. Tongshen. She is, I should introduce you, with the Institute for Global Decarbonization Progress. Thank you.
Thanks for introducing me, and it's been a great opportunity of learning for me. And I'm also very happy to share some of the China's methane mitigation policy as well as practices here. First of all, I'd like to say a couple of things about IGDP. IGDP is a non-profit think tank founded in Beijing in 2014, and our work has been major included the four pillars include climate governance, energy transition, and beyond carbon, which includes the methane and other non-CO2 greenhouse gas emission works, as well as the market-based instrument. We also have several major platforms and initiatives that's listed on the right-hand side. As we can see, there is energy policy simulator models for both China as well as the 30 provinces. And we also did some research on China's agri-food system transition. Today's presentation, I will first go to China's methane emission status as well as the national methane mitigation policies, and then go to the subnational methane emission reduction action plans. And first, we will have a deep dive into some of the case studies in the major methane emission sources in China, which include rice cultivation, livestock, waste management, as well as the coal mine methane. As we can see from China's latest greenhouse gas inventory in 2018, this data is published last year, but the year of data is actually in 2018. We can see that energy sector and agriculture sector is China's two most important methane emission sector, with the coal mining dominates the energy sector, and enteric fermentation and rice cultivation contribute to the agricultural sector. And the structure of China's methane emission is also quite different from other major economies such as the US, where in the US, most of the methane from the energy sector come from oil and gas extraction, and the methane from agriculture is from livestock. But in China, the rice cultivation contribute a lot to that. So one of the China's most important policy regarding methane mitigation is what came out last November, the China's Methane Emission Control Action Plan. Also related to its major emission sources, the Methane Emission Control Action Plan also put energy sector, agriculture, and waste as the main targets, where they also have quantitative targets such as to utilize the coal mine methane CMM, and also like the utilization rate of the livestock manure by biogas recovery, and also promote waste sorting and utilize the solid waste to generate energy. Apart from that, there are also other practices that can reduce methane emission that has been promoted in other sectoral policies. For example, China has also encouraged to utilize the CMM with lower than 8% of the methane concentration rate, which is lower than its current emission standard. IGDP also did a policy stimulus using the EPS model. So we evaluate how China's methane emission control action plan can actually do in reducing the methane emission. We put the policy into the new policy scenario, and we can see from the graph that in 2035, the policy can help reduce by 17% of the methane emission compared to 2022 if there's no methane control action plan. However, we can see that by 2060, there are still a plenty amount of the methane left, which means that there still need to have more methane mitigation practices. Since China has a top-down policy system and the subnational policy serves as both of the implementation form of the national policy, while the subnational methane emission action plans will also have some of the targets that are not included in the national plan, which can also help to pilot and demonstrate some of the work at a smaller scale and then help to scale up. In this section, we will go through all the 5 provincial regions which they have already publicly issued methane emission control action plan. And this sector we will go through in a chronological order. The first one is Ningxia-Hui Autonomous Region. This region is in western north of China and is famous for a long history of livestock farming because of the geographic condition as well as the climate condition. So apart from the energy sector, Ningxia also focus on the agricultural methane reduction, especially in the livestock management. So it's mentioned that the utilization rate of livestock manure will be at least 90% by 2025. This is actually 10 percentage point higher than the national target. Next one, we go to Shanxi province. Some of you might know that Shanxi is the largest coal production as well as the CMM production provinces in China. In 2023, it produced more than 30% of the coal for the whole China. So the key area of focus in Shanxi province is in energy sector, with a focus in the coal mine methane. Apart from the utilization rate of the CMM, Shanxi also encouraged the utilization of low concentration CMM to be used. This is more ambitious compared to the national target because national targets didn't specify the low concentration part of the coal mine methane. And as the abandoned coal mine is getting into the Chinese policymakers' agenda, Shanxi is also promoting pilot projects in managing and utilizing the abandoned coal mine methane. Next one, we look at Tianjin municipality. It is one of the 4 municipalities in China with huge population as well as a high rate of urbanization. Therefore, the main focus of Tianjin is in waste management. So it has the target to achieve zero landfill by 2025 in terms of the municipal solid waste. And also, the utilization rate of the municipal solid waste will achieve 80%. This is also 20 percentage points higher than the national target. The fourth one is Hubei province. Hubei province is one of China's 8 pilot emission trading scheme and also one of the major provinces in Middle West China to produce crops. Therefore, the key area of focus in Hubei is in agriculture sector, as well as to build on the ETS to have more market-based instrument for the mitigation. So it has quantitative target by carry out the demonstration project in low carbon while also high yield rice cultivations. Meanwhile, it will reduce the fertilizer use by 4%, which can also help to reduce the nitrous oxide. And to build on its experience in emission trading schemes, Hubei will also strengthen its mechanism for the financing into the methane mitigation throughout, for example, China's certified emission reduction system. It's called CCER, with its China's voluntary carbon market. This can help the rice farmers to generate extra income while reducing the methane emissions. Last but not least, we can take a look at Guangdong province. Guangdong province, the GDP and population of Guangdong province has been ranked first place in China, and it has an exported-oriented economy. This being said, Guangdong also has a focus on the waste management, as well as the MRV and innovative technologies in reducing methane, because it has to meet the international needs about the methane mitigation. So it set a target that by 2025, the Pearl River Delta region, which accounts for more than 60% of Guangdong's population, will achieve zero landfill. And also, it will demonstrate the pilot project to produce methanol and green hydrogen from the landfill gases. And also, Guangdong will pilot the monitoring technology to develop inventory for the landfill gas and the rice paddies. As we can see from the 5 subnational methane emission action plan, these subnational provinces are actually pushing forward the national emission control action plan by adding their own characteristics and considering their resource endowment while meeting their own commitment. So what are the underground practice look like? We also have some field trip to some of the provinces in China. And the first one is about climate-friendly rice cultivation in Yunnan. Yunnan is one of the major rice-producing provinces, but as the climate change, it's facing flood and drought in recent years. So the one local NGO, together with the agricultural Department of Yunnan province, has developed this called dry rice, that is to create ridges by digging trenches in the field, and they just plant rice on top of the ridges. And after transplanting of the rice, they can just flood the rice through the trenches once, instead of compared to the traditional flood irrigation that the rice is always grow in the water. This way can dramatically reduce the methane emission. According to research, can reduce methane emission by up to 70%. Yes, but for this method, the local NGO and the research institute has to cultivate and find the suitable varieties that can use less water during their growing processes. And together with the local farmer, they also found out another practice called rice-corn rotation, maybe with other crop varieties as well. This is to retain the corn store residue in the land after harvest and before planting the rice. This way can minimize the disturbance with the soil and will has strong effect in the carbon sequestration. And also, to plant corn in the dry season can reduce the irrigation need compared to those plant double season rice, because in the dry season, if farmers would like to plant rice, they will need extra water to irrigate the rice. But by planting corn, they don't need to have that much water into the rice paddies. Another practices is with the dairy cows in Dali. It's also in Yunnan province. And Dali prefecture has one-third of the dairy cows and produce more than half of Yunnan's milk. So supported by the Food and Agriculture Organization, the local agricultural departments, as well as Chinese Academy of Agricultural Sciences. They together developed a silage treatment method to treat the coarse feedstuff by using the corn silage feed and mix with hay to help the cow digest better. This way can reduce the methane emission by about 6% to 20%. Meanwhile, the manure is collected by the farmer and sold to local organic fertilizer producer. This can also help them to generate extra income. The other one case comes from the waste management sector from Guangdong province. And Shenzhen is a mega city with huge population and growing needs of waste treatment. So this landfill gas recovery program is commonly seen waste to power program, but it has adapted the membrane-based enclosed gas collection system, which can enhance the gas collection efficiency by 2 times, and the program can treat about 6,000 tons of solid waste every day and generate about 800 megawatt hours of electricity. This project is cooperated by the local government who invested in the gas collection facility, and another state-owned company who invested in the gas generation system and is responsible for the operation. And as we can see from the bottom graph, the waste management, this project can actually reduce quite a huge amount of the methane emission. But as Guangdong is approaching its zero landfill policy, the numbers might go smaller and smaller in the recent years. Last but not the least, we can take a look at the low methane concentration rate CMM utilization cases in Shanxi provinces. There are several cities in Shanxi that utilize different ranges of methane concentration CMM, and they use different technology and business models, but they can all generate emission reduction effect as well as the economic benefit. But since the initial investment of this technology as well as the equipment is relatively high, currently this project relies heavily on the government subsidy in terms of the subsidy for power generation or subsidy for the CMM utilization. And to combat that, Chinese government also published its new methodology regarding the low methane concentration rate CMM utilization in its voluntary carbon market. Hopefully with the financial instrument, this kind of project can be more economically viable and can be scaled up in other provinces as well. That's all of my presentation today. If you are interested in this research, please feel free to go to HTTP's website or reach out to our office. Thank you.
I want to emphasize just how important it is that Chinese provinces are taking the lead on methane, and you can see how subnational governments are hugely important across all sectors. So thank you for that. Our last presentation is a panel discussion, and Sangha Lee is going to lead that around technological advances to reduce methane. Sangha is a senior researcher in the methane program at Solutions for the Climate, SFOC. Sangha.
Thank you so much, Ken, for introducing me and opening with your kindly opening remark. This last session will conducted in Korean, so for who need interpretation, please use the device provided. 네, 안녕하세요.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is the final panel discussion today. I believe that all of you here are the most passionate about climate action. My name is Isang Ah. I head up methane team at Climate Solution. We are carrying out a lot of activities, and we are the only organization in Korea that has the name methane reduction. We deal with many areas, and we are trying to conduct research on methane reduction in agriculture, livestock, and the rest. Methane reduction is one of the most important topics dealt with so many countries around the world. And today we have heard many global trends around the world, and just before this discussion we invited the Chinese speaker on the situation of the country, and today I like to focus on the Korea's situation as well. So I know that we have a lot of international speakers, but I believe that you are very curious about our situation. Many attempts are being promoted in Korea to reduce methane, and we invited 3 panelists as experts. The first speaker is Lee Sang-seok, professor of the Department of Animal Science and Technology at Suncheon National University, and he is carrying out a lot of research on methane reduction coming from livestock. And he is also the vice president of a very distinguished organization. In January, his research center was designated as the exemplary organization for methane reduction. As far as I understand, you are the head of the research center, so please explain about the Korea situation briefly. My name is Lee Sang-seok, professor of Suncheon National University. The livestock industry of Korea sees a lot of strategies for methane reduction. As you're well aware, the livestock industry generates a lot of methanes, contributing a lot to methane emissions. And we can categorize methane into 2 parts. And how can you reduce the methane coming from livestock? That is the most important topic among the Korean experts, and we need a solution very urgently. So National University and Chungcheong National University work together to find a way to reduce methanes coming from livestock, and we are also evaluating the feasibility of potential solutions. The Republic of Korea is reviewing the effectiveness of strategies for methane reduction, and only when a strategy proves that it can contribute to the methane reduction by more than 10%. There are many ways to reduce methanes. Internationally and domestically, there are many measures being evaluated in Europe, Australia, Japan, and Korea. Evaluate the effectiveness of methane reduction policies. Korean cows or goats generate a lot of methanes, and we are also looking at the feasibility of methane reduction policies coming from those animals. And 3NOP was recognized as a material for methane reduction. There are many microorganisms that generate methane in ruminants, and that has a mechanism to generate methane. And that material was recognized for the first time in Korea to be effective in methane reduction. We are also utilizing natural ingredients, seaweed, and many other materials for effective solutions to methane reductions. And all of them have to be more than 10% effective for methane reduction. And there is a dedicated government organization to evaluate effectiveness. Compared to other countries, Korea is very strict in acknowledging a methane reduction policy. But I believe that there will be many policies certified by the national authority. Thank you for your comment. Methane reduction in livestock industry is what you are pursuing for. And there are many ways promoted by the national government in this industry, so please introduce some of them. First of all, as I introduced before, low carbon management is promoted by the central government. It is also for methane reduction, and it is also to utilize the fees with low amounts of protein to reduce methane reduction. And second, as mentioned by the Chinese speaker, we can find a way to reduce methane reductions from livestock by making some modifications for the organism. And we are also thinking about the techniques to fast grow cows and other livestock. Third, we are also thinking about how to control and manage feces or waste. And all of them aim to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and methane emissions. Most urgent way is to promote methane reduction and utilize feeds with low amounts of protein. Thank you for your explanation on the domestic trend on methane reduction in the livestock industry. Next speaker is Sim Chang-seok, Senior Research Analyst at the Korea Environment Institute. He has a lot of experiences in this field, and from early 2000, he started his research in this industry. He has a lot of experiences, once again, in climate change and climate action. So we heard from Mr. Lee on how to reduce methane in the livestock industry. Of course, we can measure the methane amounts on the surface, but we can also measure it by utilizing a satellite. In January, research was conducted by Mr. Shim on how to measure the amount of methane with a satellite. So please share why you conducted this research and please introduce the research result briefly. Okay, so as you mentioned before, at the national level, we talk about information on methane emissions by different sector. So in order to have a better understanding of this issue, I think that we need to find out what is the important factors at the domestic level. And our priority should be placed on the field with the highest concentration level of methanes. It is not easy to measure methane level actually, although we have a lot of good cases. A utilization of a satellite is a good way. And that is why we carried out the research you mentioned earlier. So at the subnational level, we want to provide more detailed information on the areas that produce high concentration level of methanes and greenhouse gas emissions. Can I skip the slide?
네.
As I told you before, methane is what the government find it difficult to monitor directly. It is not easy to directly and accurately measure the level of methane. That is why we rely on satellite information. And finding a cause for high level of methane is not easy as well. That is why we utilize major index and we looked at the cross correlation between the index and methane emissions. So we find what contributes most to the methane emissions by region. We utilize 4 proxies. First is energy, especially oil and gas consumption. Second, as mentioned before, livestock industry and methane and ammonia coming from the livestock industry. The level of ammonia is also measured by the central government and the information is provided by the authorities as well. Next, rice cultivation. We utilize the index to calculate the land for rice cultivation in this country. And we also rely on national statistics on the cultivation. And we also analyze the space and the factors contributors for methanes at the national level. As mentioned before, the methane sets and other detailed information can be provided, and the NASA also offers huge amount of data. So we relied on the data as well. We relied on spatial information of the national level, and our aim is to help you have a better understanding of the situation on this country. And you see the concentration level of 1863 ppc. This is a little bit different concept, but it is almost similar among different countries. It is an interesting picture. If you look at the left side of the slide, you can see some red points that refer to high concentration methane emitters. In particular, top 30% of the regions are in red. You can also see the green part, and that refers to the place of rice cultivation. Chungnam is one of them, and most places for rice cultivation coincide with the places with highest concentration level of methane. And if you look at the picture in detail, of course, we cannot disclose everything. Ports, industrial complexes, landfills, these places coincide with the places with highest concentration level of methane. So artificial industries, transportation, industrial complexes, they are the most important contributors to methane emissions. By 10 kilometer, we looked at the places and regions with high concentration level of methanes, and we tried to do mapping. We numbered different regions, and we categorized regions into the ones with the highest concentration level or low concentration level. And what we did so was in order to find out the cause. Yeosu Industrial Complex was recorded as the largest emitter because they are, again, industrial complex, and the landfill is located in that region as well. If you look at the Chungnam region, you can see number 76, which is called Tangjin. The same holds true to this region. That shows a high level of concentration of methane. This is for your reference. It was also reported by the media outlets, and an interesting illustration was shown by media outlets. A Korean map was displayed, and if you look at the core color, you can see that they are the ones with the highest level of methane concentration. That includes Gyeonggi region, Jeollabuk-do region, and the rest. You can see the factors, contributors of methane emissions. Where Gyeonggi and Chungnam meet, there is Ansong, and Ansong is very famous for rice cultivation. And rice cultivation was the biggest reason why the high concentration level was witnessed. And we cannot find exact factors for high concentration in Gyeonggi province. And I think that one of the reasons is the waste and water waste. And people say that the effect of waste is underestimated overall. Again, livestock feces, livestock behavior, industrial complexes, landfill, they are located all across the country, creating very complex effect on high methane emissions. So in understanding the characteristics of these causes will help us to come up with a more effective solution. The subnational governments and the national government can refer to these information to come up with a good policy. That was our hope. The most important message is that methane has more non-point sources compared to carbon dioxide. It is not easy to collect information about methane. Natural-based methane can be measured by different ways, and we have to measure scientifically the level of methane. We have heard from many overseas speakers on their situations, and I do hope that we need to come up with a tangible policy. Thank you for your attention. Thank you once again. I know that you have conducted research for a long period of time, but you gave us a very short summary. And it was easy to understand you are saying thanks to the image. And my question is that the National Research Center conducted this research, and I believe that coming up with a policy is necessary. In order to reduce methane emissions, what priority should be Korea's one? I believe that sewage and waste, these are the most important factors because we have a very small land. Industrial production, of course, we can manage that, but the management of waste is much more important, and methane coming from waste is also crucial. Recycling and the production of waste must be cut. We need to manage the sewage as well. Of course, we have focused on water quality instead of methane emissions. So we have to switch our focus on methane reduction coming from the sewage. So that is what I think the Korean government should place a priority on. Thank you for your answer. The last panelist of the last panel discussion, Mr. Lee Jae-sing, CEO of BUYEO Corporation. His company produces bioenergy by switching the waste into the organic energy, and it has the largest biogas plant in Chungcheongnam-do of Korea. Electricity, heat, energy, these areas he has accumulated more than 30 years of experiences, and he served as leaders in many organizations. The two panelists talked about how to measure and reduce methane emissions. So I'd like to ask you about the technology, biogas technology. How much do you process organic waste? And please tell me about the technological advancement in this regard. My name is Lee Jae-sing, CEO of BEF Corporation. For those of you who are not familiar with our company can be called BEF. We produce the largest amount of biogas in Korea. So let me briefly introduce you the process.
아마
I think that the characteristics of the Korea industry is that we collect food waste and recycle it. And Korea is the only country to do that. We collect 100% of food waste into the recycled energy. So again, we collect 100% of food waste, and we collect 20% of the pig's feces to process it into energy. So we produce biogas by utilizing anaerobic digestion process. We deal with about 30,000 tons, and we make it matured to create gases. And we try to maintain 37 Celsius degree, which is very similar to the human's temperature. By doing so, we try to maximize the favorable environment for microorganisms. We produce about 60,000 new bags from our factory. This is the biogas that we produce from our plant, which is equivalent to 2 megawatt. We send about 20,000 new bags to the KEPCO, and we also process the remaining energy. Annually, we produce energy for energy, and in particular, electricity for 10,000 households and 10,000 households with the city gas. Our aim is to provide good environment for microorganisms to thrive. That is, I think, the most important characteristic of our processing. We do not heat the plant. We rely on the heat contained by microorganism. By doing so, we maintain the same temperature. When it comes to biogas, the most difficult part is how to manage the hydro surfer. In order to produce city gas, we need pure methane gases. We use membranes and we rely on filters to purify the energy. And we also put another materials to make it more pure. For the production, we use steam supply and power generation. We produce energy and provide it to the nearby greenhouses. We achieve 100% renewable energy and we collect methanes. As I told you before, we produce 60,000 nube of methanes. We collect 60,000 nube of methane and reuse it. That was our technical part. I know that the terminology is not easy, and I hope the translation was well done. So let me summarize your argument. You said that you produce amount equivalent to electricity for 10,000 households and city gas, and you utilize food waste as well as animal feces to produce energy. In fact, biogas is important, and what is really crucial is to boost energy efficiency. Please share your core technology to make that happen. What is most crucial is to increase the accuracy of the gas facilities. As I mentioned earlier, we do not use ordinary methods. We use membrane method to increase the purity of the energy. In particular, what is crucial for energy production facilities is to how to process the energy. We have solid energy, water energy, but we cannot release liquid energy because we have to process nitrogen. I think that you can imagine purification facilities for seawater. So we use RO facilities, and we also use a facility which is similar to the water purification system. So very advanced technologies are utilized. Last but not least, I have a very simple question. The methane gases from the energy efficiency perspectives must be utilized by the city gas. So utilizing gas as gas is most effective way. Please share your future plan to increase the use of the energy. Yeah, in reality, I think that it is most efficient to utilize gas as gas. But with our experiences, I am sure that it is not easy and it is not simple to use gas as gas at high level of efficiency. And we have to process carbon dioxide to produce pure, very pure methanes. and I think that we have some room for improvement in the future. I think that we have to transition to another form of energy. So I'm thinking about adding some ethanol, which is easier to transport. So we are carrying out a lot of studies on this matter. Thank you for your answer. Thank you for joining us despite your busy schedule. Thank you very much. I hope that this opportunity will go beyond a venue for information sharing. We want to hear various case studies for methane reductions, and we have a lot of expectations for our future opportunities. I'd like to thank the Chungcheongnam-do for this opportunity, and this wraps up today's panel discussion. Thank you very much.
So thank you for hanging in with the late session, and thank you for this last panel. I'm a kind of a methane obsessive, so I really enjoyed it. I won't belabor this, so let me just do a very quick wrap up. Chunam has set out a very ambitious and detailed plan, but they have some real challenges because 84% of their emissions come from the agricultural sector, which is a tough sector to mitigate. But fortunately, we heard lots of subnational efforts, not just around agriculture, but certainly including agriculture, things like compost and worms, different tactics with rice, and a series of livestock strategies, among many others. More data is coming. That's good, but it's also challenging. More funding is needed. Should surprise no one. More partnerships are possible, and we're very much encouraging those. And I will simply leave you with the idea that there are many reasons to be optimistic about actions on methane. It is a pathway to real climate solutions. So thank you for being with us, and we'll see you tomorrow.